Hello all, welcome back to my podcast. Today is a little bit different. I don't have my usual setup. The audio is quite terrible. I had a bit of a setback today, and I believe it's just another way for the enemy to try to discourage me from doing the things that I need to do and sharing the things I need to share. But the message is more necessary than the quality of the audio at this point right now. So I was going to go deep into something very, very meaningful, but now I'm going to go a little bit a different route. So I can share something that's very important, however, not as necessary to be as clear, because it's sort of subjective, I suppose. But as you see, I came out in nature today. I am in a wooded area, not far from a walking path. I was trying to find a location that I had been previous. I was unable to locate that place, but nonetheless, we have found a place. It took me a while. A lot of things were setting me back, like being able to find the original first location, and also then my microphone and my computer not working in unison together. So those things have held me back quite far, which I got comfortable. But every time you get comfortable, you get presented with a challenge, and you got to overcome those challenges, right? So this is my way of overcoming that right now, is just setting it up a little bit different. No, but I also forgot my tripod at my car, which is, not the worst thing, because I found this tree able to sit here, so that resolved itself easily. But since we're here in nature, I guess we could talk about the way we need to respect it. We were all put here like these creatures, right? We were created above them, but they were also created. They're also God's creatures, right? They've got their own lives that they live, and they've got their own spaces, their own families that they dwell in, and they also got their own problems to deal with in terms of finding food, finding shelter, the little relationships they have, building homes, providing for their own families, growing up, departing from their families. So we're very similar in that respect of maturing and finding hardships and hardships and all these things that we have in similar, but we have a different way of thinking of it because of the technology we're able to build more things and use more of our mind to help do that, and not rely on instinct but on extended thought, right? So we're capable of deeper thought and thinking further into the future and using past experiences, right? And to help us decide, and using other people's experiences and with sharing and storytelling, right? To help each other get through certain issues and problems, which to an extent animals have, but also they haven't got their family thing is like, they don't have a history. They don't have history books, right? They don't have school. They're not as communicative as humans are, right? So they go based off instinct and without much deep thought. The instinct and survival, right? Pure survival. Sometimes they have fun, like as a kid, but or like with their children, they like play with them a little bit or something like that. But there's many things that animals just don't have the capacity to do, So they don't have the capacity to tell a human right? Not to invade their space. They don't have weapons besides their own physical bodies, right? To defend themselves or defend their homes, or they don't have a sort of speciesism like the different types of animals. They unless they're eating each other, they're not going to, I've seen, I'm in here in these wooded areas right now, right? I'm seeing all different types of birds flying around each other, playing with each other, woodpeckers knocking on trees while a blue jay is on a branch right above it, playing with his friend, and they're not messing with each other. They're just doing their own things, because they're not out to attack each other. They're not carnivores, so they're I guess the bugs don't like them, but also the bugs have got their own thing to do. They're not focused on getting eaten, but they're focused on helping their community, their own community, and then worrying about getting eaten later. So they avoid that when it comes up, rather than. So that's something I want to help let you recognize, is until an animal fears or knows it's in danger, it's not. I can't say this for sure. I'm not an animal, but if you study them, right, they're not worried about. They're not fearful of something that is not presenting itself as a threat, right? So animals are not continuously anxious throughout their lives. They've got their things to do. They're surviving, right? They're living their life, and until a danger presents itself, they're not anxious. They're just going about, and that's something that humans, as we work, because that's also the way we think, and using past experiences or other people's experiences can also be harmful in false equating or those experiences into fears and overwhelming fears and irrational fears that are highly unlikely to ever happen, right? Or a danger's not presenting itself, yet you're living in fear. The entire time you're living your life instead of going out to do what you need to do, you want to do, and succeeding in your purpose and fulfilling the purpose for your life, right? And that's somewhere we need to recognize that and study animals in that regard, and with using our developed minds, right, that we were given with intention, because we have developed minds for a reason. We are who we are for a reason. It's not because it just happened to become that way. It was made that way. And I can go into depths about that, but if you're here, you probably believe that as well. There's so much we can learn from all of the other God's creations. Like animals, do they learn from us? Maybe, maybe not. We're not around them enough, I think everyone should. I really love nature personally, right? I don't go on walking trails so much because I don't like the idea of someone having paved cement into the world, so the animals were disrupted at some time. I'm not like any sort of animal freak or anything like that. Love animals or something like that. I do love animals, but not to the extent of, stop living my life so I can support animals, right? I have my life to live, and I'm not a vegan. Not that, is there something wrong with being a vegan? One can make that argument. That's not an argument for today. But what I would say is, yeah, I'm not like an animal safety, like an animal conservative, whatever you call them, conservationist. I do believe that the nature should be preserved. There's more than enough room, right? And but that also leads into other conversations that I'm not necessarily going to have today. But I think everyone should, at some point in their life, take time to not only appreciate but study the way animals act with each other and the way they live their lives, right? like whatever your favorite animal is, like if you say you have a favorite animal, study it, like in its natural environment. Like if a dog's your favorite animal, that's going to be a hard one, but because they're domesticated, so I mean, then they pick up human traits. So that's an example of animals learning from humans, because you're teaching them, right? And then they develop the sort of patterns based around your patterns, and some of the instincts will just like some things animal because there's some biological things, like biological differences that we have, obviously, right? So certain senses are heightened, so they'll use that. Like they've got a heightened sense of like smell, taste, and like tactility with their paws, and senses in terms of sensing the weather, right? They've got these different things, but then with the traits that they've learned from humans, right? The sort of the body language that they learn from humans, they're all able to sort of replicate that, because like any environment you're in, you're going to if you're learning from an environment, and it's whether it be your intention or not, you're going to take something away from it. You're going to learn something about an environment if you're conscious of it, right? If you have the capacity to learn, then you're going to be learning from any environment that you're in. Whether or not you retain that information you learn once you are out of that environment, you will, and whether or not you choose to abide by the rules of your environment and participate in the patterns and you know the ways of the environment you're in, once you become aware of those things, right? Whether you're from that environment or it's a new environment, if this environment you're growing up in is the environment that in which you're learning in, you're going to have traits from that environment and portray and display traits from that environment. And then once you recognize those, right, you can then change that. However, you've still learned it, right? So every day you're learning, whether you, well, that's just obvious. Whether or not that's obvious or obvious for everyone or not. Oh, but that's something I like to. Nothing I'm saying is quite special. It's just things that you think of, and things, and things that are just happening. But once you recognize that they're happening, right, you're able to change the things that are wrong with it. Because not everything that happens in nature is right. Like in terms of human, because animals are below, so they've got thought, they've got some sense of awareness, but they also need to survive. So anything that they're doing is out of survival, right? And unless it becomes possessed by something, right? But for humans, all of our actions are being judged, right? So when we know right from wrong, because that's the difference between animals and us, the morality aspect. Some animals have a much lower moral standard than humans, just by basis of the way they were created and the way the way they do things. So they do things instinctual. We do things by deeper thought. And I was saying that we have to live our lives differently than animals, because they live by instinct, and we have the ability and the capacity. Most people, right, have the capacity to have deeper thought and able to make connections with patterns and stuff, right? So, no, animals can too. Okay. So the things that we need to learn from animals, because because I realize there's all these, people with different abilities and different, I think everyone should become aware of their purposes, right? Because animals, being that animals have purpose, right? However, animals don't have okay. If we're stating it right, so baseline, we humans are different than animals, and humans will act differently and always act differently than animals. Humans, we have a completely different purpose than animals, and the right, and that's insects included. Um, I'll give this example, right? The clearest differentiation you can tell between us and animals is production, right? So most animals, I should say, do not create technologies in which then the other fellow animal uses or tries to manufacture for themselves. There are exclusions, right? Like monkeys, like if they find a certain way how to open a banana, right? Then it's like, and then another monkey sees that, and like, oh, that's easier, or like, or like a monkey uses a rock, and it's like break it open easier, like yeah. But also realize, or I should say, apes in that matter, right? Because apes have more developed brains, so or frontal lobe, whatever, right? And then, but a monkey, right? So that was in reference to apes. Monkey will stick its hand in a coconut or inside a fruit and keep its hand closed because it wants the thing inside, right? You want the fruit inside, but it's not using it wants it so bad, like its purpose is survive, so it wants that food or survive off that food, but it doesn't take its hand out, right? And a lot of people are doing that. So that's what I'll do. Like similarities to animals, like the monkey that puts his hand in the bowl and doesn't let go. It's good, but it's not. He's never going to get it because that's not the way. That way is not going to be successful unless he's able to break open the bowl. And a lot of people do similar things. As they see what they want, right? Something that they think they need, and the way that they're trying to get it they're never going to get it the way they're trying to get it. They can grasp it like it's so close, but it's not sustainable, right? That's not something that's going to be able to sustain yourself, because you're only going to keep your hand in the ball so long, and then by the time you know to take your hand out, like that's not going to work. You've wasted so much time holding on to the thing that you should have let go of a long time ago and find another avenue to get that, Technology, man. Technology. People got their own, animals don't have so many things to worry about. Animals don't create, right? So this is something I'll say. Okay, here we go. We're on the roll. Animals do not create new technology to create more problems for themselves. Humans, because they have the capacity to solve problems, right? Solve problems but people are only solving currently problems that they create, that are created by other humans, right? Animals themselves, the way they work on instinct. So if the only problems that are created by animals, I believe, are largely in part to human interference, right? Does that make sense? It makes sense to me. Because if animals were left alone, right? If humans had no interaction with animals, animals wouldn't care if there was humans or not, unless they were in captivity. So if, let's say, there's no animals in captivity and no humans were on Earth, and the weather happens how the weather happens, whether or not we wouldn't care, they wouldn't care either. They're not fearing that. Animals aren't fearing global warming, right? Animals are focused on surviving, getting their next meal, making sure their kids are protected from any of the predators that want to attack their kids, making sure themselves are protected, right? They're not creating new problems for themselves to solve. On the other hand, humans, we're so smart, but we're so smart at solving problems and building things and making products and selling to one another, but those same things that we create cause problems, and we're causing problems for ourselves, each other, and animals in nature, and nature itself, trees and such. Taking a more, you know, it's greed. Humans have a certain, like, because I don't want to say, because yes, the animals have certain rules they have to follow, right, and certain commandments, but they don't have books written for them. Like, you're never going to see an animal read a book and understand it without a human having taught them first. Any language that an animal learns is because a human taught them, right? A language that's created. Like, there's never going to be an animal that just intrinsically comes along. An animal may be used to provide a message to a human that a human would have not listened to a human for. Well, an animal, they'll get it from an animal because of, you know, it, and that's biblical. Whether or not, and then if you remove the biblical parts, there's still times where people find themselves, right, in animals they have relationship with, like they find their calling, they become a better person because of an animal they met. They're like, you know, there's many stories about those. I don't have any specifically, but that definitely happens, you know, and that's something that we've got to recognize is, because humans are so intelligent, because humans were created with purpose, because humans sin, right? So, and it's all because of sin. It's all because of greed. Anything that, I think, anything that a human does, right? Anything bad a human does is in some way out of greed, one or another. Right? So like whether that is theft. So greed and theft, I liken to one another. So any sin is essentially a theft of something, you know, along the lines. Whether it's killing, whether it's hitting someone, whether it's lying, right? And those all different avenues of sin. You're stealing something. You're being greedy with something. Whether it's being greedy and wanting a feeling of personal joy, where you're stealing someone's life. You're taking someone's opportunity to do something at the time that they want to do it, right? So I could specify this out later, but that's a whole different video. But humans create their own problems and they solve them, right? So that's something we got to think about is, are we personally, you got to think about the problems that you have in your life. How many of them are things that you're affecting or negatively, and how many of them can you make a change and positively impact your life, and then the lives of other people, right? Because if your safety isn't insured, then there's not a way you could possibly help someone out, right? Unless you're stepping in the way for someone to ensure someone else's safety is 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 present. But before that point where you're saving someone else's life, you had to, the entire rest of your life, you had to make sure you were safe in order so you could save that person's life. So it's real. Everything's connected. It's real convoluted. There's in life, I believe this. There are very few. There's a few basic principles that everything lives by, and humans especially, because they're aware of the principles that they're living by. That's something. That's something I want to. Obviously, that's the difference between us and animals. Is our consciousness and being aware of the things that we do, and being aware of patterns, traits, and all these things. Being aware of and be able to share these awarenesses and be able to change certain things in life. Right, having morals, moral value, moral obligations, but also having the choice whether to abide by those moral obligations. Right. So animals, they don't really have that choice because they're going off instincts because they need to survive. Not many animals, very few, like unless they're unless they're in extreme danger, like fatal danger. Animals don't have many options: fight or flight, kill or be killed, or run away. So if and there's another thing that humans have that animals don't have, which is something that is something to think about. Is how many animals do you know of that intentionally inflict self-harm or try to commit suicide? That's not a very large option for animals. I know that they harm themselves unintentionally, like if they have like a burr or something, they might scratch it against a tree and then wind up harming themselves by way of that. Or if they've got something stuck on them, they bash it and then causing harm. Or ducks that have hunters, they'll dive down and hold on to some herbage at the bottom, or what do you call it, foliage at the bottom of the pond or whatever, and then sometimes drown themselves. But it's not intentional. It's to get for safety, with the intention of going back to live your life, right? But humans have that option to take their life, right? And there are ways you can. There are certain ways. If someone wants to, and see, there's lots of things that go into that. Lots of things, but that's just one thing. I'll just like to mention it. I'll do it, maybe talk about it in depth more. I haven't directly been affected by it, right? But I've surely have had indirect experience with that, right? And it sort of goes into the conversation I want to have. But this conversation is about nature. We're just enjoying nature. The sun's sort of peeking through here. Beautiful. Peeking through. I've been here about an hour now. Not getting eaten up too bad. That's good. Only a couple ants on this log here, dead, fallen log. Things we've gotta learn things from nature, man. Just take a second, and that's what I encourage everyone to do. If you're here, then I'll just say this because you're here. You're smarter than most, and now you're aware of some things. Because in this, and what's difficult for me is trying to not come off as all-knowing, because I'm not all-knowing. I'm just coming from someone that recognizes a lot, right? And is aware of my place and what I do to affect my life, and what I do to affect other people's lives, and what they do to affect mine, and what they would do to affect other people's lives. It's an awareness you have. So the more people that become aware of things they contribute to in life, the more accountability you'll have. So there's a lot of people unaware of the things that they're doing to affect their own lives, but they are still affecting it. Once you become aware of that, it's then in your hands, and you're now obligated to have a hand in changing it if you want that, if you need that. And if you do, then there's no validity in your complaints, right? Because if you're aware of an issue and choose not to, and you don't change it, then that's a personal problem. But if you're experiencing other people, you don't know if they are aware or not. You can only tell they're aware by talking to them. And some people like to admit things that aren't true. Like, so it's all about it's like it's study. You do this, you learn more when you study through experience, right? And I'm doing this, right, because, and I'm trying to be as clear as possible, sort of general, because get too specific things, because in these early ones I have to be I'm being general, just so not offending too much. But I don't care if I offend eventually, because those things, the things that I say that might be offensive are not meant to be offensive. That's not the intention. If you get offended by it, that's a personal problem, and maybe someone gets offended by that too, and I don't care, because that's a fact. Things that are not intended to be offensive, words have no physical detriment to you. They have the physical detriment to you that you caused to happen by being affected by non-physical things, non-physical words, sounds, right? Unless it's a sound that physically causes harm, as in something that makes your ears bleed. Someone doing that and causing harm to you is their fault, not your fault. If you could have prevented it, then you have a part in it. If you couldn't have, then you can't control things you can't control, and start worrying about things you can't control. Another video, but nature. They don't care about things that they can't control. They don't think about things they can't control. If they are aware of the things they can't control, they find a way to, well, they do think about it. I won't say that. They think about it when it arises, not beforehand. A rabbit's not thinking, oh, when's it going to rain? Is it going to rain right now? Is it going to rain? Then again, I'm not a rabbit. I don't know exactly what they think, but in my observation of animals, right, they're not thinking about the weather. Oh, they don't have the weather news. They haven't got a meteorologist saying, oh, it's going to be like this day. It's going to be sunny. They take every day as it is. If it happens to rain, that's why, see, they've got heightened senses of the weather, right? So they are aware of it earlier than we are, right? Whether or not we need to be aware or not. Is it necessary? The weather's going to happen, whether we can't, unless people are changing the weather. Some people believe that. I don't know if I do. Man, maybe it's possible. Yeah, I don't know. But no, but is it necessary? I personally don't ever look at the weather. The day is going to happen, whether I like it or not, whether I want it to happen or not. If there's something I need to be prepared for, then maybe, like if I'm saying I'm making plans, then possibly I'll check it. But on a daily basis, my daily life, I don't care, because I'm not going to affect it. It's going to happen, and it really doesn't matter. There's no purpose in me checking it personally on most days, right? I don't care. I'll just make my plans around that, like an animal. If it's right, if it's, they know it's gonna rain, right? They're gonna seek shelter earlier, right? And they don't care if it's I'm not saying I can't say they don't care, but they're not thinking about that the day before until it happens. Until the senses present that there's going to be a change in weather, they're not concerned. I don't think they're concerned about it. And the next day, maybe they've experienced it before. If they haven't, then they're going to be shown how to experience, like the mud and wet leaves, how to maneuver different things. That's why, some animals die falling off cliffs as well. Like, there's accidents in the nature, right? Things happen, and they will happen. You can prevent certain things by having experience prior. So if an animal knows there's a ledge somewhere when it's dry, then it's their first time experiencing rain, and they don't know about like slipperiness, and they go over towards it and slip off, maybe hurt themselves, right? Or maybe die. Maybe another animal witnesses that, its children witnesses that, So it takes that and say, okay, don't go there after it rains, or don't go near here, or be careful over here. Like, there's certain things that are just learned, and like everything is learned, as I said earlier. But and everything you can learn from. That's what I suggest for everyone. Just take a look in nature, take a gander, look, study for a while, sit, be peaceful. Like, listen to the communication between animals. They were going to do that whether you were there or not. Like, things, like so many selfish things that people worry about. Like, the world is going to continue, and has continued. The world was before you were, but the world can change because of you, you know? You can help fix stuff, right? But also you shouldn't be worried about things that you can't change. And also try to change the things you can change. And like, sometimes you don't know what you can and can't change until you try. But you gotta put your efforts in. I don't know. There's just something about, like, I haven't always had, you know, certain opinions, certain thoughts. It's only taken me time to think, right? Like, the way I learn is through experiencing. Someone could tell me something. Like, I don't listen to, like, intellectuals like that, because what I believe is anything they found was through experience. Like, certain things you learn, and then certain things you figure out. I want to be the person to figure out why something happens, right? And certain things don't matter. Like, unless you're gonna do something to change it, consider gravity. Animals don't consider the formula of gravity at all. They don't consider why a nut falls from the tree. Why, right? An animal just thinking, oh, thank you for that nut falling from the tree. The camera fell. What I call it. No, but all I was saying is, an animal doesn't care about why gravity affects its life. Animal doesn't consider gravity. Animal doesn't call gravity gravity. Animal doesn't care why a nut falls from a tree, or and the weight, you know. Like, it doesn't care about the formula for gravity. It cares about, oh, that's a nut that I eat. I don't have to climb the tree. I don't have to expel energy to get it. But now it's on the ground and I can get it easier. Now I can spend my energy trying to get it open and get the seed out. Right. So, or acorn I should reference. Like, acorn nut, whatever. Like, animals just don't care about things that they aren't going to affect. Right? Or not going to try to change. Right? Like a human, the only reason you would need to know or want to know why gravity works the way it works is to change the way it works, right? Or understand it. But if you're studying something, then you're going to, like, experiment with it, right? If you're studying something, or I mean most things, if you're interested enough in it. Like, there's certain things in institutional education that should be optional. Humans, we have been in school for what, hundreds of years? Like, in terms of a setup, maybe thousands. We'll see. It doesn't matter. Regardless, uh, things that adults know, like, not just any adult, but like things like, if you figure out something, you should learn what you want to learn and use and implement and and learn the things you're interested in. There's obviously basis of things if you want to learn language and all these things. Yeah. Learn language so you can communicate with the people you live around. But then also, if you're interested in living somewhere else, you're gonna have to learn how to communicate otherwise with the people in that community or that area. So there's certain cues and certain things that you have to learn anywhere you are. But in terms of fields of sciences and stuff, you'd only need to learn those if those are things you want to wind up affecting. And by the time you get to a place where you want to learn how to affect it, you probably have forgotten certain basic things if it's not kept up. So I think everyone intrinsically knows I can't say that for certain, but from a young age, my purpose presented itself, right? At a young age, it presented itself. I strayed away from that purpose, and I found new purpose. You can have more than one purpose in life. So I have multiple purposes. So I'm just now figuring out how I want to do it, because I can't do it in a traditional fashion, because there's too many things that I don't agree with to make me be able to go that way, you know. So I've got to find my own way. I'm making my own way, and that I've got to do that by doing this. And I wish I could do it better than I am, but that's what's gonna help me learn, by doing it and doing it consistently. So that's all I can do. That's all. When you find your purpose, your life becomes a lot easier, because you got your goal, right? And you got something to look forward to. But you also got to make sure you're taking the right steps in that direction, and making sure you're not straying by causing more problems for yourself than necessary, right? Because that's something we like taking from nature. They've got a goal. They got a goal, but and if they realize a goal is unrealistic, they change the goal, right? Some animals have low attention spans, some have high attention spans. Like certain species of animals, like are more adept to solving certain problems that another animal or species couldn't. There's some animals in the same species that are smaller than the other. Like, I found this problem, and some of them are biologically more equipped to deal with certain problems. Some have sharper, like longer claws, you know, on average. But these things, like, we gotta realize that there's variation in animals as there are in humans. We don't have to realize anything. You don't have to learn about animals. I'm just saying. if you want to, if you want to learn more about yourself and the creation of and creation, right? Most things apply to a few basic principles of survival. And outside of those things, there's things that are necessity. Outside of those things are things that the flesh want, and things that are not necessary. There's things that you want, and the things that are necessary. People are trying to. This is what humans try to commercialize and commoditize our needs, and that's greedy human. And it only works because people continue to use. People continue to play into that system. Like, hey, yeah, that makes sense. They're making rights and needs and basic human rights a commodity, making you a product. And I can say that and that's even more in more developed societies, that the smarter, right, the more developed the country is, the more people are manipulated. But the more that society can hide that manipulation by making them think, well, it is a better society in some aspects, but you're also more keen to relinquishing more control over your needs and necessities. So you're given, the more advanced a society is, the fewer people that are in power. So that means the more fewer people have control, right? And the more a singular person has control over, or a singular group of people in fashion has over. It's a real smart. I'll talk about government later, because I can talk about the hierarchies in nature and how the correlation. Maybe what I'll do next time. I'll do that next time. But that was the start. That's part one. All right, love you all. Be blessed, stay blessed, and I'll see you all later. M.I.C. check. All right, cheers. And hopefully I'll have a good mic next time. Cheers.